Lions, who, there's some pressure on your boy, Jared Goff, South Bay's finest out here in L.A. Maybe you'll get a bite with him when you come out here next week. There is pressure on him. Quote, the Lions have too much talent not to bounce back in 2025, but the end of the season has to leave you wondering if the franchise can actually make a Super Bowl run with Jared Goff. I think that's a little silly. He was moments away from a Super Bowl 2 years ago in that San Francisco game.
The bigger issue is he is not a mobile quarterback. And in this league right now, teams like, Washington with Jaden Daniels, even Denver with Bo Nix can add about 20 to 25% of the playbook because you can constantly move the pocket. That's why Shanahan, by the way, likes Brock Purdy. One of the reasons he likes him is you can move the pocket. You couldn't with Garoppolo. So Garoppolo didn't throw deep and he couldn't move particularly well. One of the attractive things about Purdy, I can flush him left or right. He does move well and you get more plays. And so I think these I think you look at if you just lost your center who retired, not good for Detroit, not good at all. So the O-line will not be as good, period, in the middle. And now you have an immobile quarterback. So I do think you start looking at this and thinking, hey, do we have to have a great O-line in order for Goff to win? Because eventually some of these offensive linemen outside of Penei Sewell, you can't afford all of them.
So, by the way, Goff had a career year last year, 37 touchdowns, QBR, best of his career. I think the issue with Goff, Colin, we're going to notice it early. You remember last year, anytime the Lions played and Goff's throwing, guys are wide open. I'm talking like everywhere. Defensive backs aren't even close. If all of a sudden they're not as open because the new OC is not as good, I think you need to sell the Lions like in September. You're going to be able to tell early because those guys are so wide open.
I still think they have a great roster. What is the over-under, 11 to 11 and a half?
10 and a half. I think it's 10 and a half.
Yeah, so I think they're an 11-win team. But I do think I think there's an argument when you lose two elite coordinators. Go ask Philadelphia when Sirianni had two great OCDC, lost them, bad hires. That team was reeling. Think about how good Philadelphia's roster was a year and a half ago, and it was reeling. They were a mess. So coaching matters.
Quarterbacks they got to face in the first 6 weeks. Jordan Love, Caleb Williams, Lamar Jackson, Dylan Gabriel, Joe Burrow, and Patrick Mahomes. That's three of the best 4 quarterbacks in the league in the first 6 games for your new defensive coordinator. Good luck, Lion.
Yeah, well, the schedule's brutal. There's no question about that. But the real point that I really want to talk about is that the pressure is not on Jared Goff to prove he can lead team to the Super Bowl, because he played good enough in 23 to lead that team to a Super Bowl, and he also has been to a Super Bowl. So he's clearly a good enough quarterback to get to the Super Bowl. The rest then is on the coaching staff and the Lions franchise as a whole. I mean, I don't want to revisit too much what happened in 23, but I mean, they decided to go for it on 4th down, and it was a 46-yard field goal attempt that easily could have been made, clear conditions, all that, which would have put them up 3 scores in the 3rd quarter. And you were like, nope, not going to do it. Let's put the ball in Jared Goff's hands. And Jared Goff succeeded in that moment. He avoided the pressure. He climbed up the pocket and threw a perfect strike that was then dropped. That's not Jared Goff's fault, okay? He did what needed to be done. And this was in a game when he was pressured a lot. He was pressured 15 times. He was pressured 15 times. In the Super Bowl this year with Patrick Mahomes, Mahomes was pressured 17 times. So, just to kind of put it in perspective a little bit here. And then there was the other moment. They could have tied the game. 48-yard field goal that they decided to go for it again on 4th down. And, Jared Goff pretty much got flushed out, had to just pretty much throw a prayer because, especially at that point in the game. And, there you go. That was on Dan Campbell. That was on Dan Campbell. And you can't just tell me, oh, that's the way out. That's what got us here, or that's Lions football. Football changes. It changes moment to moment. It changes game to game, drive to drive, season to season. The way how Andy Reid coached Patrick Mahomes, the way how Patrick Mahomes played in 2018 is vastly different than in 23. They won a Super Bowl. 22 from 23, vastly different. Won Super Bowls in all 3 of those years. You got to evolve. You got to adapt. You got to change. Okay? That's the way this works. If it was just this basic formula well, then anyone could coach that. And it's like, here's the formula. Always go for it on fourth down. Just be really aggressive. There you go. And it's like, all right. But there's real decisions that need to be made here. So I don't see that the pressure is on Jared Goff. Jared Goff has pressure, obviously. He's the starting quarterback of a team that's been great for the last few years. So, like, I get it. There is pressure, but it's just like, it's not, I don't look at it as it's Jared Goff's responsibility, per se, to lead the Lions to a Super Bowl. I think especially when you have a great roster, your responsibility is to not hinder your team, your roster, your Super Bowl aspirations. And it's really now up to the coaching staff, from my viewpoint, is to then be able to have you take that next step. Especially when said team has proven enough to be able to play great enough. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's a weird framing of this all, honestly. Because I'm not going to look at it through the lens, especially in 23, where I'm just like, oh, if Jared Goff was better, then they win. It's just like, I mean, like, you can always technically have a better quarterback. Always. Even if you have the best quarterback in the NFL, that quarterback could still technically play better in a game. So there's just a lot more other factors. If I watched the Lions play in, say, 23, and they were clearly just carrying him, or he just did not elevate, then I could understand. But they were in positions to win, and he wasn't the defining losing factor. And I know in 24, he didn't have a great playoff game, but obviously they were decimated with injuries. It obviously wasn't a perfect game, but Ben Johnson also did call a bad game. I mean, there were bad decisions and also just bad luck as well. Like, it was really kind of the perfect storm for the Lions. And Jared Goff deserves some blame for that, but it's not like I'm like, oh, Jared Goff laid an egg. They were going to go to the Super Bowl, and now they didn't because of Goff. Like, many people felt that team was hanging on by a thread with all of the injuries that they had. So that was always going to be a bit of an uphill battle. But I do agree with Colin that losing both your coordinators is obviously troublesome, and that is a brutal schedule. Packers, you got 2 divisional games back to back. Don't care who the quarterback is. Don't care who the coach is. Divisional games can always get crazy. At home, on the road, and you got Packers, boom. You got Bears, boom. You got Ravens, boom. Like, all 3 of those games should be tough. They should be tough. I'm not saying that you can't win those games, but those should be tough, physical, hard games. Let's be serious here. Cleveland, no. The Cincinnati Bengals, I think that'll be a tough game. Joe Burrow, even if that defense continues to be trash, I still have my faith in Joe Burrow. Kansas City Chiefs is going to be a tough game. I think the Buccaneers is going to be a tough game. I think the Vikings will be a tough game. I think the Commanders will be a tough game. I think the Eagles will be a tough game. Now, it's just tough game, tough game, tough game, tough game, tough game, tough game. The beauty is, if you survive that, if you're winning, if after the 9-10 weeks or whatever, you're whatever it is, 9-2 or whatever cutoff point we're using, it's like, this team is battle tested. This team is great. When we say that this team is a top team in the NFL, we truly mean that this team is a top team in the NFL. We're not just like, yeah, they're good and they're a contender. It's like, no, they are it, right? Like, you're coming away with some big wins. It's like you beat the Eagles, the Ravens, and the Chiefs. It's like, all right. And they're 3-1 in the division or something. You're just like, this team's in the driver's seat. But then it also is interesting if you look at it from the opposite end, where you're like, all right, they beat the Chiefs, they lose to the Commanders, but beat the Eagles. They split in the division so far, and you're just like, all right, they're 8-4, but they've had a lot of really tough games and a tough schedule. Like, it's so much of it is going to be, how do these games unfold? How close are they? How are they playing? Where are things going right? Where are things going wrong? This will definitely be a team that you have to really kind of zoom into to really see how everything's unfolding, because I think they could still be a great team, and it just so happens that they do lose to the Ravens, the Bengals, the Chiefs, the Eagles, and it's not because they're inferior to those teams or they're not good enough. It's just the way how this year unfolded. that there was a couple close games, a couple, unfortunate circumstances that, instead of the ball bouncing their way, it didn't. And it just so happened that the ball didn't bounce their way in 3 big games this season. And so you lost them all. And so that's why it's like, just because you lose to a team doesn't mean that you're inferior to a team. So, they have so many interesting and fascinating matchups that you are just really going to have to watch and really be like, okay, you lost to the Ravens, but are you just as good as the Ravens, or are you on their level? And it's going to be fun to watch, honestly. But they have their work cut out for them. No doubt about it. And if you're saying that you're now getting 2 brand new coordinators and you want to put the pressure on Jared Goff, it's like, no, the pressure is actually on those coordinators, because we've seen what this team could do these last couple of years. We've seen it. And it's not just about, how talented of a roster this is. Coaching matters in the NFL. I don't understand why people still struggle with that. Coaching is massive in the NFL. Okay? There's a reason why the vast majority of Super Bowls are won by Hall of Fame coaches. Just the way it goes. And the coaches that have not made the Hall of Fame, who won Super Bowls, they were either great and just didn't coach long enough, or they were pretty good but just, they were good, they just weren't Hall of Fame level, or they had like top 20 quarterbacks of all time or something. They had like unbelievable quarterbacks, or just like that, they had an amazing defense, and this was during an era where defense was king, and that's not the case anymore. So even if we're looking at the past as reference points, it's kind of hard to compare the 80s to the 90s to 2025, because football is fundamentally played so differently right now. But there's pressure on the coaching staff more than anything. Jared Goff has proven to clearly be a good enough and great enough quarterback in any given moment and in any given season. So even if Jared Goff takes a big step backwards, let's say, it's like I'm looking at coaching more than I'm looking at Jared Goff. And if you say, well, he should be able to be better no matter what the coach is, and it's like, yeah, maybe if let's say he like really falls back, it's like, okay, yeah, would you want him to be more resilient? For sure. But at the same time, clearly when you give him a great coach, he is good enough to make this team a Super Bowl contender. And you can make the argument that the Lions in 23 were better than the Chiefs. And then who knows? Maybe they beat the Chiefs and now they're Super Bowl winners. Like, that's how fine of a line this all can become. Jaden Daniels ends up beating the Bucs. The field goal almost goes wide. They almost miss. Baker Mayfield doesn't fumble. Who knows? And now they lose first round. Instead, you have Jaden Daniels get to be a hero on the road against Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and then gets to roll the Lions. And now it's like they're in the NFC Championship game. Oh my gosh, let's go. And it's just like all of that could have not happened. Like that's football is really the ultimate butterfly effect, dominoes, multiverse if you're into MCU and stuff like that. It's just like one little thing happens and nothing happens. One little thing doesn't happen, everything happens. So that's a difference. It's what's crazy. You catch that 4th down or you just kick that field goal. It's in the NFC Championship game. It could literally be the difference between being a Super Bowl MVP and never getting getting to the Super Bowl ever again. Like, it's the way it works. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Detroit Lions and Jared Goff needing to prove he can lead the team to a Super Bowl? Who do you think's under the most amount of pressure? That's what I'm curious too. Do you think it's Jared Goff? Do you think it's the coordinators? Do you think it's Dan Campbell? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.